Hey, hi Justin.
Hey Matt,
Hey, how are you?
good.
I did not set an agenda because of Labor Day yesterday, but I will do so right now so we can take notes. If I can find the freaking meetings. There we go. Okay. I will circulate this in case people want to write in there. So we'll give it another few minutes so we get started. Okay. We can probably get started. I will share this agenda in the chat one more time. There's not really anything on there, but we will use it to take notes. Um, Matt Whitehead has some edits. Delightful. Okay, quick housekeeping. We know we have this meeting being recorded. So please mute unless speaking. And if you feel like you want to speak while someone else is speaking, raise your hand on the Zoom. Um, and as usual, there's an antitrust policy on the Linux Foundation website that is applicable to this meeting. Um, cool. Why don't we start with Matt, your agenda item here. We have one from you regarding Bonsai Archive update.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, in fact, actually, that was the second one I just added as well. Thinking about it, the first one, if it's right to start with that, because it's probably more of an admin ops kind of issue, was just around Git issue assignment, and I wonder if it's right just to briefly discuss that now because it might be a super short
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
I guess so. I have a colleague who's looking to contribute a bit more to Besu, and I can't assign him issues, and I think this is standard. Sally posted in Discord why this is. I think he has to comment on an issue for someone to be able to assign it to him. Um, but we were finding it a little bit clunky. That was the main feedback was he wanted to work on an issue and it was a bit clunky for him to have to comment. And then I think one of us could assign it to him because he had a couple of issues he was looking at, raised a draft PR, and then someone else raised a PR at the same time and closed it out. And he was kind of working on stuff other people were working on. So yeah, it was a really small item around that. I don't know if it's just that's the way it works, and then that's what we have.
Yeah, what role do you have in the repository? I mean,
Uh,
right?
that's a super good question. I don't know any. Just maintainer is the only one I'm aware of. How would I find this out?
Do you have the like admin panel on the top of the repository?
I have settings, but very limited settings when I click into it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is definitely a Sally question because she was just playing with the permissions the other day because something happened to my permissions as well. Um,
Okay, yeah.
I can assign issues, which is weird that the maintainer would not be able to assign issues.
I guess
Uh,
that was the main takeaway we discovered was it looked like there was maybe a tiny number of people who could just arbitrarily assign them out. And I wondered if it was possible to expand that a little bit just for pragmatic day-to-day people in the right time zones, people who work with colleagues, that kind of stuff.
yeah, I mean, I will check with Sally. I feel like can another maintainer just quickly check if they can assign issues? And then if that is the case, then we know we just have to tweak Matt's permissions.
And I guess specifically is if you can assign issues to someone who hasn't yet commented on it, I think that's the specific check.
I can assign, not sure which is my role actually.
I can also sign, and I'm not a maintainer.
So I think it might be even more nuanced than I was saying. I think maybe it's assigning to someone who is outside of the project. So I'm looking at a random one here. I have the assignees like option. I can click on it and I can assign. So there's one of the latest issues 7536 JSON frame opened. It looks like I could assign it to me or him. That and possibly other people within Hyperledger. I think maybe it's limited to who you can assign it to. Yeah. Yeah, the triage role, Justin, I think you might be right. I think Firefly have just added a triage role along the same lines. Um, so it's possible that the colleague I was trying to assign it to is not in the right project, perhaps, who maybe that's the issue. It's not a permissions thing.
All right. I'll take for action to speak with Sally on this, I guess. I think it's probably some weird minutia, or maybe even just have to like log in and out of your account because a lot of things were changing in
Yeah.
in the permissions. I know that Sally was she was actively tweaking them last week as early as soon recently as last week. So might be, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it, Matt. I think um yeah, it's not a big deal. I'm wondering if it's to do with the person I'm trying to assign it to not being um in the right Hyperledger projects or something.
Word. Okay. Yeah, I'll just chat with Sally. I'm not sure where we're sitting with this.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I will take note and see how we can get that sorted out.
Thanks. Yeah, so then I guess moving on to more interesting stuff. So I said last week, chatting to Matt, I'd just do a quick update on the Bonsai archive work. So this is kind of building on basic bonsai support and bonsai support with BFT, which is now pretty much available, and bonsai and snap and BFT and all the work has been generally going on with bonsai. And the fact that Forest DB is going to be deprecated at some point. So I've been working on support for Bonsai Archive with a lot of input If I hit share screen, I can just show that. I guess the wiki page is probably the most relevant area. See if it's shut. Here we go. Maybe this is it. So I've been trying to kind of capture here some of the discussion and I guess conclusions and where basically where it's at. There are kind of two draft PRs. So some work was started by Gary, and I've kind of carried on a branch and raised a separate draft PR as it's moved along. And I had a really good chat with Gary and Karim last week around how the flat DB that Bonsai has, how that's going to be used to move old state out of the main segments of the DB and into a kind of a freezer area of the DB, separate segments in the DB that mean that database access to current kind of recent state in the last of the order of last hundreds of blocks is still performant. So yeah, so work has basically been kind of going along nicely. I don't have anything to demo this week, but maybe on the next contributor call I'll have something to demo. And we also talked about the fact that there are probably two parts to this work. One is to make archive state available, so I could issue I guess like an ETH call against a contract on a very old block and get the state of some ERC20 tokens a long time ago. And then secondly, the ability to get a proof for that state at that block, which requires all of the state tree at that particular block to exist in order to generate the proof. So we think maybe we'll stage delivery. One might be around I can get the state, and the second might be I can get a proof for the state. Yeah, so things are moving along nicely. The way it's been added as a configuration option is that you have two DB modes today, which are Forest and Bonsai, and this adds a third DB storage format, Bonsai Archive. It doesn't add, in fact, I need to update this page. It doesn't add a flag to Bonsai to say make this a Bonsai Archive node. It actually uses a third data format mode. So I need to clearly update this wiki, which is now a few weeks old. But yeah, so work kind of going along nicely. And maybe on the next contributor call, I could do a bit of a playback, bit of a demo, maybe of an archive node or something. Any questions or anything?
Gary or Kareem, any comments or feedback?
Not on my side. If you have any question, feel free to ask on Discord.
Yeah, same. I joined a bit late, so I missed the first part of the presentation. I'll be interested to see the kind of freezer implementation for state.
The demo, yeah, it would be nice to see it. I think the main question was related to the performance. So if it's not a problem, it's really nice.
Yeah, so a big part of the work will be following on from actually kind of decode and unit test of the actual function, actually performance of creating an archive node from public net, creating an archive node from a permission chain, that kind of thing. So there'll be lots of performance testing involved.
I think one of the interesting notions is some of the RPC archive queries can be served directly from trilogs for transactions or state that would have occurred for a specific block. So yeah, it would be interesting to have both of those functionalities available, because I imagine having a full state archive is going to be a fair bit more expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think users are going to want the choice. I think just, separate from the kind of staging delivery into Besu of the two different kind of basic bits of function. I think as users are going to want the choice of the trade-off of storage amount versus lookup time, JSON RPC latency, that kind of thing.
How do we plan on testing like the kind of sliding scale of storage versus performance? And like, is that something we've considered making configurable as well?
So yeah, we did have a bit of a chat, Karim and Gary and I, about making some of the choices configurable. Certainly today, there's already the roll forward, roll back of trilogs, where the node will roll back cumulatively or roll forward cumulatively, depending on whichever is quickest to get to a given snapshot of the state tree. So I think configuring how big those windows are, and how much time it takes and how much memory it consumes to roll forward or backward from a checkpoint to a given snapshot of the state tree. I think that will be one configurable point. I think with this freezer idea, we might want to make it configurable how much we consider to be current state that you might want to access fairly low latency versus how much is in frozen storage. Well, actually, and that said, I think that's going to be fairly linear access anyway. So yeah, I think forget what I just said, but certainly the rolling forward and backward of state trees, and we had this idea of checkpointing given snapshots of the state tree every n blocks. So you only have to roll forward or backward from the nearest checkpoint. Again, that's going to take more data storage to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. In a perfect world, I'd love to try to quantify that so that we can make sets of choices, like a default choice that's like probably somewhere in the middle of storage versus latency. But I feel like people are going to want, like you said, especially like in the linear use case where they probably don't care about storage as much if they're like providing infrastructure, then they'll just like dump a million checkpoints and hope that the latency is extremely low, versus other people who might have like just an archival storage need but want to serve occasional RPC. Like, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily seem needed for a first iteration, like to get it out the door and start testing. But I would love to try to put data around that if we can at some point.
Also, we can have an additional flag to say where we want to start the archive feature. For example, maybe some people don't want to have the history from the Genesis, they just want to have the history when they started to do a snap sync of their node. So it could be also something to not have all of the history, but when you start your node, you will have the history from this moment to the current head. Like a forest node, when you have a forest node and you start to do a snap sync, you will have all of the history from the pivot block.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think making that configurable and also possibly exposing. Gary talked about the RocksDB options for snapshotting the actual database layer. We kind of talked about the fact there's a very different user experience if you want to get to some state. You have to restore, your DB at the DB layer back to a given point in time. But again, I think it is possibly an answer to the archive picture of being able to take DB level snapshots easily as part of your Besu configuration without having to necessarily do Besu things in order to, RocksDB things directly in order to do that, having Besu perhaps drive RocksDB to do its own snapshotting periodically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know if that needs to be a first iteration, but I would love to like see how we can improve the feature over time and provide options. But yeah, when we get closer, maybe we can, like Kareem said, if we want to provide an extra flag that just lets us do more testing and then decide on a default later, it's probably fine. Awesome. Okay. Anything else on this topic? Okay. Anyone else have any topics to raise? I saw we had an update from Fabio, I believe. Nope. Maybe I made that up.
No, which update do
Sorry,
you
no, I
mean?
made that up.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any updates? We'll just go to open floor.
Oh, I will start working with EIP 2537 for the Besu native constraint bindings.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We found some interesting cases where Constantine is faster than the NARC crypto implementation, and there's some cases where the NARC crypto implementation is faster than Constantine. So maybe there's a future where we just, go with the most performant option for specific functions, whether that's part of BLS or whether that's part of BN254. Or, I mean, hopefully we're going to eventually get Verkle in, right? Constantine Verkle.
Yep, definitely.
Anyone else have anything they want to bring to the group?
Okay, some ads from my side, sorry. So with Hyperledger, we are going to hold a meetup on 24th of September. So mostly we are going to discuss Indian Besu, but of course it will be impossible without telling about Besu and India as separate projects. So you're welcome, ready for look for your suggestions for topics for open table and all your opinion and join in this event.
Yeah, thank you. And I will be speaking and providing some context for sure on the Besu project. Anyone else?
Is the meetup a virtual event or is it a physical location? Where is it located?
Should be virtual.
Okay.
Yes, we hope to see each other once, but for now it is just online meeting.
Is that on the Hyperledger calendar, or where could we find the time and time zone for that?
Yeah, this Hyperledger event in the calendar. Sorry, give me really 1 second for check a link to this event and time zone. So let me share a link to Meetup. At first, remember it is maybe Pacific time in the morning. So if you have any questions, ping me in Discord or email.
Awesome. Sounds good. Indie Besu. What was the date? I just want to make sure I capture it in the meeting notes.
In the US, it's September 24th.
September 24th. Okay. Awesome. All right, still open floor. Any other comments, things that people want to bring to the group, concerns? All right.
I was
Gary, you
just, yeah, one quick question. Do we need to discuss the changing from Hyperledger to was it Linux Foundation? What's the new umbrella organization name
Yeah,
again?
that's a good call out that I probably was supposed to mention. It's not removing anything. We're just removing the name Hyperledger from Besu. So it's just going to be Besu, which I believe might cause confusion with some, but hopefully clarity with others. So, I mean, this is more for the private network folks on the call and communicating appropriately with your customers that like nothing is actually changing. It's just that with the Linux Foundation moving to this decentralized trust umbrella, we have the option to drop the Hyperledger branding. And since people usually conflate the word Hyperledger with the ledger itself, regardless of if it's Fabric or Besu or something else, we have opted to basically just remove. Well, I mean, it's up for discussion, right? This was where I'm trending is I think we should remove the name and just go to Besu. It's also more in line with just our position as like an Ethereum client versus, like a Hyperledger piece of tech. So does anyone, there's two topics, I guess. Does anyone have any issues or questions about that directly, the name change and how it might play out? And then the second piece is that there is a logo that we are basically voting on among maintainers in the Besu contributors channel. So scroll up, there's like a little poll. It seems like we've settled on design number 4. But yeah, any questions, comments, concerns about anything I just mentioned with that change?
Hopefully we're not changing any namespaces on the code base, because we just want to avoid the Jakarta nightmares that occurred.
That is a good question. I have not gotten clarity on what happens to the repo. I think that the root trust of like the root organization will change. Like the Hyperledger org will likely change on GitHub. But I don't know. I will bring this up at the next technical oversight committee meeting because I want to get answers on what this looks like, if the repo is going to change. Will it cause huge headaches if all of these, if the name is removed basically everywhere? So yes, as Justin is saying. Yeah, well, so the links changing, I'm not really super worried about. Because our docs team has like the ability to scrape basically all the links and find broken things, including the repo, including the readmes. But I mean, there's also the possibility that we just it stays named Hyperledger, like it stays in the same code org, but it just is called Besu, which is probably the best case. Like we externally market it as Besu, but it stays on being called yeah, just stays called like the same Java package names, the same release tags, like all this other stuff could stay the same. I'm adding a note, so discussed naming change. Maintainers want clarity on the mechanics of removing the Hyperledger name from the actual.
Well, we still have Pegasus in some packages, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time this has happened to this code base. Yeah, okay, so Gary, you're saying it's lots of fallout, but it's still worth it. I mean, does it simplify anything?
I think it just adds some clarity, like
It's just basic.
just with the, like you said, the association between Hyperledger Fabric, Ethereum, Besu, etc. It seems simpler to drop the Hyperledger branding, and that's my personal opinion. I think that in the long run it's worth it, but there'll be some short-term pain, like with the repo names and documentation redirects and plugin API compatibility and all kinds of things. But I think the fallout is worth it personally.
Okay. Anyone else in that same bucket? I mean, there's also the well, first of all, anyone else have similar comments or?
I don't think, I'm not sure, do we have a completed list of the impacts on renaming packages? Because Yeah, I was thinking about the plugins. Yeah, that's somewhere out there with plugins that they will have to change. That might be have an impact similar to the Jakarta API. Things falling apart. So I'm not sure if I'm on the same boat as Gary.
Okay. I will try to I'm gonna take these questions back to the other Hyperledger people, and I'll try to get clarity on this. So like Docker, GitHub, plugins, releases,
Maven Central.
Yeah, Homebrew, Maven, and things like Twitter. Yeah, can we do a staged rollout I mean, I think that we'll start with probably just the marketing and then the code base specifics. But I will try to get clarity on this.
Yeah, links should mostly be fine. I'm just worried about the package names because even the OpenJDK at some point, very not a distant past, they did change the links as well, and there was some bit of fallout. But yeah, mostly it was okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. I mean, on the other side of that, go vote in that little logo poll if you didn't. Yeah, I agree that we could use the plugin API kind of stuff as some of a catalyst because we're going to expand all the documentation there and more of the plugins. Anyway, any other comments on the name change or concerns that I should take note of in the meeting minutes?
If we want to discuss this on Discord, where do you think we should put this on where should this conversation go?
Contributors is fine. I don't think people Hyperledger has been signaling that this is happening, so I don't think that we'll catch anyone off guard if we talk about it openly. Also, David Boswell posted that logo thread that anyone was free to vote and click on. So I think it's fine. Yeah, I'll say discussions and Besu contributors. Okay. Anything else, folks? All right, I have a quick item. We will be pushing forward with the sunset plan around the 11th of September, ideally. Basically, it's just starting with a release blog that says what's going to happen, what is impacted, and some alternatives and migration paths and solutions. So I know that a lot of you have reviewed the original material, but if you want to refresh your memory, you can check out the GitHub and the docs that I've shared. Not the GitHub, the wiki and the docs that I've shared. And if you really can't find it, just ping me and I'll send you a link. But yeah, that plan is going to be put into place starting a week from tomorrow, I believe, presuming there's no delays. And then, yeah, the private network folks might receive some inbound traffic from people that might be confused or impacted. So I just want to make everyone aware. And you can reread, like I said, the material to get refreshed on what will be happening. All right, I'm taking note of this. All right, it seems like that's kind of it. One last chance for open forum and questions. Otherwise, we'll close out early. Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Great chatting today. As usual, we can follow up with any of the discussion points in Besu contributors channel on Discord, and I will share updates about some of the naming things when I get them.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
everyone.
Have a good day.
Cheers, mate.